Walked into the kitchen yesterday to find my 14-year-old son washing a block of cheese. Now, if you think that's normal, you should probably find another video to watch. Probably sorts of videos that I find my 14-year-old son watching on YouTube. After a few seconds, I pointed out that washing cheese is a bit weird. I asked him what had happened and he explained to me that it had fallen on the floor. Fair enough. He's 14, he's trying to figure out best solution to a problem. And without wanting to be that dad that points out all the problems and issues with what's going on, gave him credit for trying to sort out the problem he created. However, his turn of phrase kept going around my head and I brought this up with him. It fell on the floor. What I really wanted to know, I guess, was whether it had actually fallen on the floor or whether he'd dropped it. Inanimate objects, especially cheese, don't tend to fall on their own. They do tend to need some kind of input. And of course he admitted, yes, he dropped it. I asked him why he'd used that particular phrase because it removed all level of accountability from the situation. If I'm honest, I couldn't really come up with a good answer. A quote attributed to Carl Jung is that which we need the most is found where we least want to look. And that seemingly was derived from an old Alchemic quote, which you can see here. The point of the matter is, humans are predisposed to make as many excuses as we can to make life as seamless and easy as possible. It's why we turn hunting into supermarkets. And it stood us in good stead, to be completely honest with you, but it does have its downsides. I'm on day 2 of something called 75 hard. I'm not going to go into it now because I'm going to make another video about it probably in about 73 days time. But ultimately it's a set of very short, very strict rules that you do for 75 days. And if you mess up, you start again. And there is most definitely something to be said for having a set of hard rules, strict rules that have no flexibility in it. For example, you need to work out twice a day for 45 minutes. One of them needs to be outside, but you're not allowed to do one 90-minute workout outside. There need to be 2 separate workouts. One of my students the other day was telling me about 75 hard, and she immediately said, I haven't got time to do my second workout later, so I did a 90-minute workout. And I was like, but that's immediately changing the rules. There really aren't that many rules, and you're changing them. You're making excuses already. It also said they were working on a 3 strikes and you're out policy. Well, ultimately, this is about no strikes. Like, you're committed to something for 75 days and you do it with no exceptions, no excuses for 75 days. And this level of honesty and accountability that does lack, I spent decades with as well. I think most humans do. But in the last few years, last 2-3 years, I've really started to pay attention to these and try and work on these myself a lot. So I feel in a fairly decent position to talk about these things today. So let's look at the problem and let's look at some solutions. Onwards. Problem number 1 really is accountability and honesty. We all have things we want to change. If you speak to anybody, there are things they want to change about themselves. Some of them are public. The idea of being distracted by your phone in the middle of a conversation, which I find incredibly rude, has kind of almost become societally acceptable. But those things are public. There could be more private things, like perhaps only you and your partner know just how much you drink of an evening. It's not something you'd really like your work colleagues or your friends to know about. And then we have the intensely personal secrets that only we know about, and that could be, well, that really could be anything, couldn't it? Even down to illegal activities. And only we really know those things that we really should change. When you speak to people, they all know them. The fact of the matter is, more often than not, we also know what the solution is, but we lie to ourselves. A simple example of this would be somebody I spoke to the other day who said they watched too much YouTube. Somewhat ironic, huh? They wake up in the morning with the best intentions in the world to get on and do stuff. 2 hours later, they're still scrolling through shorts. So like any logical person, I said to them, well, just delete the app off your phone and charge your phone downstairs. And what ensued was a list of excuses as to why they couldn't do that. I use it for work, I use it for my alarm clock. It's like, yeah, we ain't gonna win here until you accept some level of accountability and responsibility for it. At the end of the day, there's a very simple solution. You just don't want to admit it to yourself. And believe me, I've very much been through this process. I've made excuses for every toxic trait that I have. The public ones, the private ones, and the secret ones. But I'm kind of fortunate in as much as I kind of reached rock bottom for a start, and secondly, I'm also sort of selectively psychopathic in as much as I can, and have learnt to be extremely hard on myself and try and take emotion out of the equation. But here's the solution. This is what I've learnt through that process. You know when you have an argument with somebody and as you walk away you think, I should have said this, I should have said that, I should have said the other. Well, that is what Professor Steve Peters refers to as the chimp paradox. The chimp part of our brain is the emotional one. It's always going to win. It's always the one that kicks in first. It's the limbic system. And as we walk away, what starts to kick in is the prefrontal cortex. That's the more logical part of our brain. And when we're identifying things about ourselves that we want to change, it's very, very easy to get stuck into limbic solutions, making excuses for ourselves because we're emotionally attached to certain things. This way, you two. If our friends were telling us these problems, because we're not emotionally attached to them, we'd probably actually come up with some sort of fairly logical solution for this. And one that, if you were to be completely honest, was obvious and often, hard as it often is, very simple. Charge your phone downstairs, delete the app, stop buying alcohol. Very simple solutions to actually seemingly often very simple problems. That, my friends, is why talking to people about your problems can help. Now, I'm not actually a massive fan of therapy. I tried it a few times, but really did not get on with the therapists. But that doesn't mean that talking to friends, going out for a pint, going out for a coffee, going out for a run, going out for a bike ride, isn't something that's extremely valuable. That's all very well if the solution, and that's all very well and good if the thing you want to change is a public thing, something you're not afraid to talk about. And I'm sure if it was a private thing, your partner would be over the moon to discuss the problem with you, because if it makes you happy, it's going to make them and your family happier, right? Got to start with yourself. But it could be that you're just not happy talking to people, or that the thing you want to change is very, very private, something you don't want to share with anybody. And that's okay, because there is another solution. I've always shied away from journaling. Sounds a bit hipster for me. However, I was reading some research a little while back that's shown in fMRI scanners that saying things out loud, either to a person or otherwise, and writing it down physically, literally in your brain, moves whatever it is from your limbic system, the emotional context, to the prefrontal cortex. It's weird. I've tried it and it works, and actually it shows why journaling and talking, two really key things in therapy, really does work. Because once we're able to A, take accountability, B, be really honest with ourselves, and C, move it from an emotional response to a logical one, then we can come up with some true, honest solutions. So give that a go, write it down. No one needs to see this. You can get rid of it, put it in an envelope, burn it, bury it, do whatever you like with it. Just write it down. And then finally, the last step is coming up with a solution, right? And this can take weeks to commit to, months maybe even. But I assure you, in some circumstances, the thing you need to do could possibly be very tough. And you need to make some serious decisions. Come on, you two! For the love of God. Every time I come running with these two, they disappear. My friend Darren lives up there. I swear to God, they go on the swings and the slides in his garden. Come on, you pair of idiots. So at the end of the day, you need to come up with a solution. You become accountable, become aware that the problem you have that you want to overcome is your problem. You're being honest about it. It's not the world that's caused the problem. It's you that has the solution. And you're being honest about that problem, and you're starting to think about it in a less emotional way. Then we can come up with a solution. Now, exactly 500 days ago, I gave up drinking. Today, 500 days, I had an alcohol dependency, and it's not something that I opted to do on the spur of the moment. I didn't wake up one morning and go, I'm going to stop drinking now. What I did was I thought about it. I knew what the problem was. I knew damn well what the solution was. What I had to do was make sure that I wasn't going to start creating a ton of excuses or 3 strikes and you're out or any of those kind of things. If I was going to stop drinking, I need to stop drinking. I had a conversation with Beck saying, what about birthdays and parties? She very honestly said to me, you'll start creating parties, get-togethers and gatherings to drink, because that's how my brain works. And she's right. I went out for bike rides with people and spoke about it. I spoke to people who drank, people who didn't, and I got my act together and I decided that I was capable, very capable of doing this. Otis, you're going to trip me up in a minute, but there are no strikes on this. I stop drinking, I stick to it. My point is, your solution to your problem might be very easy. It might simply be a case of putting your phone downstairs and letting it charge there, or deleting an app. But I'll be completely honest with you, some of the things you might have to confront might be incredibly challenging for you, and you do need to think those through carefully. But you also need to be incredibly honest that ultimately you do have the solution to your problem. Here's another game changer for you. You have an internal problem, right? Something that you've accepted that you're accountable for. The solution also lies intrinsic. The problem is intrinsic, the solution is intrinsic. There's no point in looking for external answers to intrinsic problems. There probably isn't an app to cure your problem. What you need to do is take accountability and sort it out yourself. You need to be honest with yourself, write these things down and go, this is on me. Just remember what Jung said. Ultimately, the solution to the problem is probably where you don't want to look for it. It's going to be deep-seated, might take a seriously long time, and it might even get worse before it gets better for you. But ultimately, you do have the solution to the problem. It's within you, you know the answer. The biggest hurdle is moving it from this emotional, excuse-based, humanistic, low friction solution. There are loads of things you can do to change them up. Look at James Clear's book, Visual Cues Make Things Frictionless or Add Friction. There are loads of things to create solutions for your problem, but the biggest hurdle is here. Stop making excuses. This is the biggest thing. Stop making excuses. Stop blaming the extrinsic world for your failures. They're your failures, they're your problems, and they're your solutions. If you think about it logically, we're all very quick to accept responsibility for things that go well at work, with our family or whatever. But when it comes to failures, we quite often as humans tend to see that as being a problem with the world that wasn't down to us primarily. Take it from me, I mean all of this with the very best intentions and with the very best will in the world, but really the problem lies with you, but therefore so does the solution. Come on you two, this way. In the meantime, gang, whilst you're having to think about this stuff, don't forget that I do mean all of this with the greatest deal of love possible for all of you. You're all humans. Not that I've met many of you, but the solution does lie in you. It does in me too. And I'm not some kind of hardcore Goggins thing, but we do need to be tougher on ourselves. We really do, because ultimately life isn't straightforward and neither are the solutions, but we do have the control. See you on the next video, gang. Come on you two, let's go.